Hey guys, I just wanted to let you know that I now have Oh Hell No merch on sale. So if you haven't seen it, check out my website and click on the Shop Oh Hell No merch link to check out all of my cool merchandise. I have t-shirts, I have notebooks, pens. Wait, I don't think I have pens. All right, I got cups. I got a lot of cool stuff. So if you love the podcast and you want something, to keep you in the spirit of, oh, hell no, go check out my merch and get something. Support the podcast. It will be greatly appreciated. And don't forget to subscribe if you're not subscribing. And please, please leave a comment. Let me know how you like the show. I'd really appreciate it. And I appreciate you. Thank you.
Welcome to Oh Hell No with Nicole.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Oh Hell No podcast. Today we have Lou Cappetta. He is the, I want to say, editor-in-chief of Pod Magazine. Is that correct, Lou?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, editor-in-chief, co-creator.
Yes. So, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for being here today.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So the first question I'd like to ask you is, what do you do for a living today?
Okay, so Pod Magazine is actually it's like a side hustle.
Mm-hmm.
I am in the construction industry, in a construction union, but I've always been very artistic and things like that. So I've always planned to try to have something like that after my days in the field are over, and I'm getting up there, so they're getting closer and closer. Not close enough, but close enough that I should start thinking about these things. And a friend of mine and I started a podcast, and we went from there and developed it into thinking about making a magazine, and that's that. So right now, really, I'm in the construction industry, but I hope to be full-time in the media industry within, the next year.
Okay. So when did you discover podcasting?
So it's kind of a weird tale. So I've always been a writer. I've written lots of things. I started writing for different websites and stuff, mostly pertaining to sports. And then I created my own website pertaining to sports. And then that developed into, about maybe a year and a half ago, developed into a podcast. I tried it for the first time. I had a partner with me who was a little unreliable, so it was difficult to record episodes, so we stopped that. And then I got the itch again to do it. I really liked it, and it was a lot it was a lot easier than I thought it would be. It wasn't, when I started, it was very intimidating, and then when I realized it wasn't that difficult to put something out there, and it was easy to learn on the fly, I decided to do it again. I started by myself, and I just started reaching out to people. And then a longtime friend of mine, who is very, very funny, Jay Burke, he decided, I talked him into coming on with me, and then we had a podcast together, and it was it was a lot of fun.
Mm.
So it's been about 2 years total, with a little bit of space in between as I kind of learned the ropes.
Okay. So what do you love the most about this medium? The whole podcasting thing, what excites you?
I mean, the best thing about it is that really honestly, with a little bit of effort, it gives everybody a voice. There's no reason, if you have access to a computer and a set of headphones, there's no reason why, if you have something to put out there, that you shouldn't have a voice. It really is. That's why I love the accessibility. I think I love the best about it, because it's so accessible, and even though it can be intimidating, and really as you learn, I mean, I'm sure you've been doing your podcast for a while, you grow and you learn and you become better and more refined the more you do it. But there's that opportunity. I mean, everybody has a computer in their home, just
Mm-hmm.
about. There's that opportunity with that computer just sitting there for you to get what you feel inside of you out there to the masses. And that's really what I find fascinating about it.
So as a listener, what, if anything, do you find most annoying about podcasting?
Oh man, I'm really open-minded. I will really give everybody a chance. I don't really like, because everybody's art is different. To me, it's an art. Everybody's art is different, and it's always, there's something out there for everybody. But if I had to pick something, I would. I don't like so much the major networks and media companies and conglomerates are starting to dominate. Like, like the iTunes list and the recommendations and things like that. That bothers me a little bit. But that would probably be the biggest thing. I give everything a chance. I listen to a whole range of different topics, different types of podcasts, different shows, different episodes. It's really, I enjoy it. I like to be well versed in everything. I like to give everything a chance.
Yeah, I love it too. I listen to a lot of different shows. I really enjoy listening.
Do you really?
Yeah, I do. I'm like obsessed. So
can I ask you, do you find that, like, find inspiration from other shows? Because I found that I did that. Like, there was an appreciation that I would have for somebody in one of their shows or what they did here, and I would say, like, oh man, that you don't steal from them, but you do find. At least I found that I found inspiration from other shows that I was listening to. It made me want to work harder and strive better, and just do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like,
I know what you're saying. I try not to steal anything from anyone's show. If I listen to someone's show, I really try to just listen and really enjoy what it is that they're doing. What I can tell you that I have gotten from other people's shows is tips and, learning different things that I can apply to my podcast. That really is not something that you would say, oh, she's doing that just like her. Because, a lot of the podcasts that I listen to are not really like what I'm doing, even though a lot of people are doing what I'm doing, but I like to listen to topics that are just like really different.
Nice.
But yeah, I definitely feel like you can get inspiration from other people's podcasts. One time I was listening to this girl's podcast and she was just saying, like, if you think that you're going to, like make some money, like make money on Instagram at this point, she's like, you missed the boat. Like, that's over.
Oh, right. Yeah.
She's like, that was like a while ago when people just discovered Instagram. That's when you were able to like really blow up on Instagram and make money. She said, now you have to find something else. Like, it's a good tool, don't get me wrong, but it's not going to get you fast cash. Like, it's just not. So right. I love that because there's so many people who are constantly trying to push, oh, we can get you followers. We can do this. We can do that. And it's really bullshit, like
I get 1 million of those a day.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And those same people have like 2 followers. Like, so how the hell are you going to help me? Like,
right.
Yeah. Yeah. So
I get tons of those like every day. I'm just like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. So how did you come up with the idea for Pod Magazine? Like, what clicked that made you say, hey, we should do this?
Okay, it's funny because I never thought like people actually had like this moment where it was like, like snap, and then bam, there's an idea. But I really did have this moment. So I have my podcast with my buddy Jay, and that's a lot of fun. That podcast is basically just the same conversations we've had for 20 years because we've been friends for 20 years, and we just record them now. Sometimes we have guests, and I was really like, it was starting to get a little bit of a following, and we were really finding our way. And I'm like, I'm looking for ways to promote the show on a budget. So I'm like, you know what? There's got to be a magazine out there where we could probably get featured or something, like some type of, even if it's a trade publication or some type of thing like that maybe not even be that well known. And I started looking and looking and looking, and I did not find exactly what I was looking for. I'll never forget. I got to work early, and I was having a cup of coffee in our work trailer, and I'm like looking on my phone for things, and it just clicked, and I'm like, oh my goodness, there isn't one of these, and I couldn't believe it because even in the construction industry, my partner Jay Burke, he's in the insurance industry. I could tell you, there's like 7-8 trade publications just for construction, which is ridiculous. Nobody wants to read about construction,
Mm-hmm.
but there is. And I was like, oh my goodness. So the first thing I did was, now this is like 6 o'clock in the morning because we started at 6:30. It's like 6 o'clock in the morning. I called my wife. I woke her up and I said, hey, listen, I have this idea. I think it might be really good. And I told her about it, and she thought it was great. And when she thought it was great, that's when I knew that it was a good idea, because she grounds me. She's normally like, that's the dumbest idea I've ever heard. Which, to be fair, I come up with a lot of stupid ideas. So this is not like, I didn't just have one great idea. This is like one great idea and probably like 2 million ideas I've ever had in my whole life. And you're right. And most of the time she's like, that's just stupid. Drink your coffee and go to work, and that's it.
Right.
But she was like, she's like, I think you might have something here.
Mm-hmm.
Then I called my buddy Jay, and he agreed. And, long story short, really, everybody I discussed it with really thought that I had something. So my buddy Jay and we handle a lot of the content. I talked to my younger brother, he has a business degree, and we brought him on board to really handle like a lot of like legal stuff, business, and researching. And then I also have a friend for a long time he's an app developer, and he was on board to develop the technology, the apps, because the publication is going to be app-based,
Mm-hmm.
Digital publication. And I just said, listen, all 4 of us have an essential thing here. We become 4 partners. You guys want to do this? And we were all in. And it's been well received so far from everybody who I've mentioned it to. And I feel really lucky about that. I'm very appreciative too.
Yeah, I feel like when you come up with something that is meant to come to fruition, like things just start to happen to support the idea, just like how
they fall into place.
Right, your resources just came together, and it's like, wow, yeah, that's awesome. So what are you most passionate about in terms of your message to your readers?
When I first thought about making a podcast, I was still under the impression that like podcasts were like, from people, like a guy who lived in his parents' basement and he wanted to talk about like Star Trek, like that type of thing,
Mm-hmm.
And what I discovered, because I did a lot of research, like when I really started and I wanted to get involved in podcasting, I listened to a lot of podcasts, and I discovered a lot of stuff. Now my friend Jay and a friend of ours who does some writing for us, they're both really into podcasts, and they put me on to a lot. And I really was surprised at just what great shows were out there, and quality was out there. And I have a long commute to work every day, and I listen to the radio, and now I don't even listen to radio. I listen to podcasts. The quality is so superior to radio, and there's so much of it. What I really am hoping like to deliver with this is that when you open up a podcast app on your phone, it's really like you get some suggestions and things like that. But what I've gotten from a lot of people, and this was me included, you almost don't know where to start.
Mm-hmm.
So we really hope to help people with that by showcasing, shows and creators, and even just down to like episodes that were really interesting that you may have missed. Hey, you may want to listen to this, and also like tips for people who are creating podcasts, and also help podcasters reach people that they may not have reached before, especially if you're not part of a big media conglomerate that can really make sure that they get their show on the first page of the Apple Podcasts or Google Play or things like that.
Yeah, definitely. Because that's the hardest part is promoting the podcast and getting it out there to a wider audience. So yeah, that's absolutely the number one issue.
What do you use to promote your podcast? Like, is there a certain, or is that something that you're still like trying to figure out the best avenue to go? Because I always wonder that, because your show I actually discovered it because we started talking because of Pod Magazine and social media. But I mean, you have a very good show with a lot of very interesting guests, and you're an independent.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder, like, how does that work for you? Have you come up with a formula, or is it something that is still like a work in progress that you're still figuring out?
It's still a work in progress. I mean, I use social media.
Right.
And that's my biggest push right now, and just making connections with other people. I try to read as much as I can about promoting your podcast and how to get yourself out there and, reach a wider audience. So it's definitely a work in progress for me. So, but it's difficult. It's really hard. You do these ads sometimes on Facebook or Instagram or whatever it is, and you don't really reach that many people. Maybe some people will click on it, but actually going to your website or listening to the podcast, that's a whole other thing. And then sometimes you interview people and you think that they're going to share the interview because, these interviews are all about the guest. So you would think they would want to share the interviews. And a lot of times these people don't share them. It's the most bizarre thing,
That is weird, right?
Yeah.
You know what? I never even thought of that, but that's weird, especially because you've had some very good guests on. One of my favorite episodes, her name is Katie Maggio.
The Level 10.
Level 10.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's amazing. And that was a really great episode. And it might have been one of the first episodes I really started to listen to, but I don't know if she promoted it or stuff like that. But she does have a pretty solid following. And you're right. You would think that most of these people do have something that they are also trying to get out to people.
Right.
And that they would.
Right. Because if you're accepting the interview, and a lot of the guests I get from either their public relations people or them themselves come to me and ask me. Sometimes I'll go and I'll seek people out, and sometimes, I don't get a response, and sometimes I do. It's like a full-time job getting guests.
Yep.
But when you get a guest, you assume that once you do the interview, when you you publish it, that they're going to be just as happy to promote it as you are. But a lot of times they don't. And I find it very interesting. So I read something that said, you really should discuss the terms of, what you're going to do once the interview is over, how you're going to promote, you need to discuss that beforehand. So that's definitely something that people who are podcasting should really think about, because that's how, it helps you to promote your podcast. One person will say, "Oh, I heard this great podcast, listen to it," or they'll put it on their page and someone might click on it or whatever. So it's really important. But it just pisses me off that the person that you spent time interviewing doesn't realize that. But you'll go on.
You would think it would be common sense.
No, but here's the kicker. I have interviewed people who, they have really big followings. They're doing big things, and they'll get a spot in a magazine that's well known, or on on one of those shows that's pushed by those big conglomerates that you're talking about, right? And they will put that in their Instagram. "Oh, I'm at the Spotify studios or the ABC. Look at me. But I'm not worthy of that same promotion." That's what really irritates me the most about, podcasting and, dealing with people. But I have a friend who said to me, the reason people do that is because they think that they're important. They think that they're celebrities, so
it makes them feel like celebrities.
Yeah. And it's so stupid, because I'm just totally not even on that train. I like to build my podcast around everyday people, because I feel like it's so fascinating to talk to someone who's more relatable to the everyday person, to say, "Hey, this person had a dream and they went after it, and look at them, they're doing it, and it's awesome." So, honestly, I really don't chase celebrities. If I'm interviewing someone, they really have something that I'm interested in talking to them about and, getting the information. So, but yeah, not to go off on a whole tangent, but.
Nah, you know what's funny? On a side note of that, I want to tell you this, and I haven't really. My partner and I really haven't told many people this, but there have been. I don't want to name names, but there are people that when we were just doing the podcast, we tried to get people on the podcast and they would blow us off, not respond, whatever. And then we reached out to some of those same people with the magazine about magazine features that pretty well-known people. And instant responses, want to be in the magazine, what do we have to do to get this done, things
Yeah.
like that. And we found it really, really fascinating. For some reason, there's something, I don't know if it's a vanity thing because it's visual or something like that, but it was very, it was interesting. There were a lot of people that blew us off when we were just like an independent podcast, but now that we are doing a magazine, which,
Yeah,
people are really,
it's more
there's some of
appealing.
those same people, all of a sudden their schedules are very freed up.
Right. It's like so crazy to me. I'd be like, no thanks. But that's just me.
Yeah.
But
I
mean,
want to, but I got to be honest with you. I really hate my job. I'm trying to get out of there. So
no, I totally understand. I understand. It's very interesting, this whole world. It's like you see things and you experience things, and it's just like, wow, I'm just a little person in a little pond. I can't imagine what bigger people who are really, out there with these huge podcasts, like what they go through on a day-to-day basis with, the guests and bookings and interviews and all that stuff. It's got to be insane,
Oh, right. Yeah. That's absolutely a full-time. I mean, more than a full-time job. Like, you need a staff.
Yeah.
And that's just even if you're just doing it like once a week. If you're doing it, 2-3 times a week, I can't even imagine that. That really, you have to be making money at that, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to do anything else.
Yeah, no doubt. But I was really talking about from like the standpoint of, dealing with the little things that we see in people, like just what you said, like when you were just doing your podcast and trying to get guests on and people didn't give you the time of day. Now that you're doing something on a different level, now everybody wants to be involved. I just mean that type of stuff,
Right.
Yeah, like dealing with people and their personalities and how they view themselves compared to how they really are, and just dealing with all of that bullshit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the egos and shit. Yeah,
exactly. So I could just imagine. So do you feel like this is putting you in line with your purpose? Do you feel like working in construction, well, you talk about wanting to get out of that. So was construction something that just happened for you, or was there a time when you loved it? And do you feel like this new venture that you're moving into is more in line with your purpose? I definitely know that it's a passion for you based on what you've said, but what do you feel in terms of purpose?
Like, construction was never really for me. It was just kind of something. It's weird because I've been told that I have a lot of like blue collar stuff about me, but I'm also on the inside really very artistic and thoughtful and things like that. So but what happened with construction is I was not able to go to college after high school. I ended up marrying my high school sweetheart, and we started a family very, very young. My oldest daughter just turned 21, and I just turned 40. So that's how young we started our family. And her father happened to be in a construction union that covers New York City and northern New Jersey. And there was an opportunity for me to get in that union, and you're looking at very good pay and medical benefits, and here I am with a wife and a child, and those are things that I had to think about. So that's how I ended up in construction. So
okay.
It wasn't a passion of mine. It was more of a necessity and an opportunity that I was not able to ignore.
Mm-hmm.
And listen, it was never my thing, but I've been very, very lucky in the fact that it's provided a good, for a guy that went right from high school into the real world without a college degree or anything like that. It provided very well for my family. It's medical benefits. I've been able to. We actually have 5 children, and it's helped them. There's been benefits. We've never had to worry about things like that. So I've been lucky in that aspect. Like I said, I'm 40 years old. We had 3 of our children are grown now because we had them young, and it is getting to a point in my life where the other things about me, the artistic things, like my writings, stuff like that, the the passion to create
Mm-hmm.
that I've had to set aside for so long is really pushing its way forward. And that's with, doing the websites that I wanted to do, and then eventually the podcast. And now with this, I really feel like everything that I've done has led up to this because of the way it's fallen into place so easily.
Yeah.
Not forced at all. Like, everything is working out a lot easier than I expected, which is great. And just how well received it has been so far. So I really feel like this magazine and what I'm doing now is really my purpose and going forward. And it's funny because it's not anything that I would have ever thought that I would be doing.
Wow.
But it just hit me one day, and that's what it turned into.
I love it. I love that you said that, now that most of your kids are grown, you're kind of, looking back at yourself and rediscovering those things about you that you want to actually pursue and do for yourself. That's really amazing. And that's a great point for everyone, because I think,
Thank you.
At times we get lost in our families and being a husband, being a wife, being a father, a mother, and we forget about ourselves and our dreams. So I love that you're, following that passion. That's amazing.
Oh, thank you. And like I said, I've been very lucky to be able to do that. And, there always was that, in the back of my mind that, one day I will try to do these things. And it just turned out that it just happened kind of a little unexpectedly, but it's working out well so far. I'm very happy.
Yeah, I love it. So let's talk a little bit about struggle. What was the
I
biggest...
know a lot about that.
We all do.
Right.
What was the biggest struggle when making the decision to start Pod Magazine?
Well, the biggest struggle was financially. So right now I had to really worry about, is this going to be something that is, fiscally possible?
Mm-hmm.
Because any money I am putting in, I'm putting in my own money into it, which luckily, like I said, hasn't been a lot. Like, I do know people, and I was able to talk to my buddy about the digital stuff, developing the apps. Like, I have a lot of design. There's an artist in me, so I learned a lot of the Adobe programs and stuff myself. I taught myself. I know writers. Like I said, my brother is a business major. He's very, very, very pragmatic and deliberate and stuff like that. Those are things that I need because I'm very, all over the place and kind of spontaneous.
Mm-hmm.
So he balances me out. But the digital stuff, the actual coding and things like that was, which also happens to be the most expensive part of the process, was something that I was worried about and really, really struggled with, trying to come up with ways to make this happen. And there are services out there that will help you put out these digital publications and create apps for you. But I mean, you're looking at $4,000 up front. And I am,
Yeah, when you have
one thing.
Side hustle, it's expensive.
Right.
I know.
Exactly. It's not like, it was one thing for my wife to tell me, like, oh, that sounds like a great idea. It's another thing for me to go to her and be like, listen, I got to spend $5,000 on this magazine that might not ever do anything.
Exactly.
So, right. So luckily, I was able to bring somebody in and make them a partner and stuff like that. But even now, we are going to be starting like a Kickstarter campaign and one of those Patreon things, so we can have working capital. Because we're supposed to. I have some shows that are out in LA that want us to come out there and follow them around and do features on them. And we are going to go out there in June, but that is taking up, the money that would have been a family vacation, which luckily, because my wife started a new job, we weren't going to be able to take anyway. So it works out, but still, things like that. The financial aspect of it is the biggest struggle for me, because that is the one thing right now that will keep me from this venture taking off.
Yeah.
Because there really is no way around that. Kids have to eat. I have responsibilities. I have a list of responsibilities that come before Pod Magazine, unfortunately. So I'm trying to work around that. Luckily, I have been very, very lucky to have very supportive people who are helping me out in this and and are on board with the idea. So it's been working out, but that's the biggest struggle, I think, and a very, very long-winded answer.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Thank you for being so honest too. I really appreciate that, because that is the reality of following your dreams sometimes. I myself too work a full-time job and I do podcasting on the side. I don't really make any money from this, but I find myself investing a lot of money into this. And the other day I was saying to myself, "Oh my God, I hope one day this finally pays off, because if not, my husband's going to be like, okay." Like,
Yeah.
So
I know that. Yeah,
he's gonna be like, "Oh hell no, I'm sick of this." That's what he's gonna say. So I totally get it. But I just started talking about struggle in my this is like the second interview that I've brought in the struggle piece, because I feel like with passion, purpose, there is struggle, so I just want my listeners to hear some of my guests' struggles, just to know that, it's not an easy road, but when you're passionate about something and when it's in your purpose, you make it happen however you can. So thank you again.
No, thank you. That's perfect. That's an amazing question, because it really is like right now this magazine has become, it's basically been, my day job for me, and which even I'm going to tell you, there are some guys in my day job, look, the guys I've been friends with for a long time, we're working together, who have covered me at times when I've had to take phone calls and send emails and things like that. Mm-hmm. And it's basically been my day job and this. And, my family's been supportive, my friends have been supportive. I mean, I've missed some things because I've had to interview people, or a lot of the stuff has been in New York. I got to head to New York, and there's that. There's a lot of sacrifice there, because you're missing things. I have two sons. One of them is 19, and one is 6, mm-hmm. and they both play baseball. I coached my oldest son, and I coached my younger son. Wanted me to coach him this year, and I wasn't able to, because I have this venture that I'm trying to turn into a real business now. I help out, but it's different, and that's one thing that's a sacrifice and a struggle. You know what I mean? This is really something that you have to weigh. Hey, is there a chance that this could be something real? And if it is, there are, besides financially, there are just in life, most people's lives, there are tough decisions that you have to make. Like I'm going to be doing an interview with a comedian who has a podcast in May, this young lady, Rachel O'Brien, mm-hmm. and she has a show in Hoboken, New Jersey on May 18th, which is not far from where I'm at. And I was supposed to go to a wedding with my wife that day, and she just said, she said, "No, that's your opportunity to do that. You go do that." And she's going to actually take my younger sister with her.
Wow, well, that's really awesome, because she's being supportive of your dream, and we need that,
Right. I think it's more that she doesn't want me to drink too much and embarrass her at another wedding, but whatever. I'm going to say she's being supportive.
Oh, hell no, Lou. Come on.
Right.
So funny. If you're an entrepreneur, you don't want to miss the upcoming Startup and Entrepreneur Networking event, which will take place on May 23rd from 6 to 9 on 1740 Broadway, 15th floor in New York. You can get ticketing information at Eventbrite. Well, whatever it is, listen, at least you can go do your thing and you don't have to feel really bad about it,
Right. Yeah, exactly. So it works out. Whatever it is, it works out.
Yeah. So what are your top 5 podcasts right now? And if you don't have 5, give me top 3.
Oh, wow. That's tough. Oh, man, I've been listening to so many. So, all right. They're in no particular order. Oh, wow. So, so there's a podcast I just discovered called Conversations with People That Hate Me. Mm-hmm. Have you listened to that at all?
No. That sounds interesting.
It is. It's so, man, I wish, it's like I've been listening to so many, so some of these names are, man, I'm gonna mix them up. But, so there's a podcast, there's a guy who decided to make a podcast, about about. Oh, sorry. So here it is. I just looked it up. I'm sorry. So Dylan Marin, he's an online video creator, and his first season of this podcast, he called people who wrote like hateful messages about him, like on the internet, to ask them why and talk it out, and it's fascinating. Now his second season is where it's not so much him, but he is like a mediator between people who have differing viewpoints and may have argued and said nasty things to each other online. And it really, really is. So many times, it's when the two people talk, it's just like, oh, I didn't see that, and even if they don't end up agreeing, they have like a different, like a certain appreciation for each other. You know what I mean? Like, or respect.
Yeah. All right.
Which you don't normally see. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I've always been. A lot of people hate this guy. I've been a fan of his show for a while, and I was lucky enough to have his co-host on my podcast. The guys are incredibly cool and gracious. The I Am Rappaport podcast with Michael Rappaport. I'm sure you.
I know who he is.
One.
Yeah. So give me two more, just names of podcasts that's in like your rotation that you listen to weekly. Or
two more. There is a lesser known podcast, like an independent podcast, it's just called Culture, and it's like they talk about a lot of like it's a hip hop podcast. I'm a big hip hop fan, mostly old school stuff. I don't really get these rappers that wear.
Do you you listen to Drink Champs?
I do listen to Drink Champs sometimes, but
okay.
Noriega gets on my nerves sometimes because I have a friend who reminds me of him, and when he drinks too much, he just says a bunch of stupid stuff. But it's really like, but yeah, I do listen to Drink Champs sometimes.
I love that podcast.
Yeah, that's a good one. Actually, I don't know if you remember the rapper Mike Geronimo. Yeah, he's another guy I got to talking to. I still keep in contact with him. He was on our podcast, and I was a big fan of his in the 90s. I grew up in New Jersey, right outside of New York City, and I was very, very into a lot of the the New York scene, the Queens rappers and stuff like that. And I just so the Culture Cast. This guy's from New York. He's he also does another podcast, Sophisticated Ignorance. But the Culture Cast is I really like that. It's a lot of old school hip hop talk, like not any of these new rappers that I can't understand. But yeah, they're not meant for me though. I'm an old head to them. So that one. I've listened to a lot of episodes of your podcast too. I'm not just saying that because I do really like it, and your podcast put me on the Katie Maggio's podcast. So I like that one. Those are two. So I find them very inspirational, both yours and hers. Very a lot of inspiration there.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
No problem. It's a very good show. I was very excited to do this.
So with you saying that, I'm going to stop you right there in terms of the podcast. But with you saying that, what do you think are three main ingredients of an amazing podcast?
Three main ingredients. Well, okay, because there's so much content out there, like sound quality has to be good. That's a main ingredient because I feel like if you're like you could have the best content ever, but if somebody turns your podcast on and the sound quality is off, nobody's going to listen to it. I don't know if you ever watched The Cosby Show growing up. I loved The Cosby Show. And there was an episode where Bill Cosby was talking about, I guess Denise brought home a guy she had married while she was overseas or something. And he said, he made this big deal about like, oh, she made this great, your favorite dinner, steak and everything else. And then, but when she served it to you, she came here and served it on a trash can lid. Like, would you eat that? And I try to think about that when I'm listening to podcasts, because content is most important, but it is also about presentation, and sound is the number one. If you're not going to sound good, chances of people tuning you out are greater. I feel that.
Yeah.
Two, I think, is really like being real. You know what I mean? Like being yourself, being just, and it sounds so cliche, but it really, like, you can tell when something is forced and somebody's not really being themselves or trying to be somebody else. That for the podcast, the best podcasts are like really when people are just themselves. That's I feel make them different and fascinating because everybody is different. The third thing is I think that content, and it doesn't always have to be guests. I think sometimes, and I fell into this too, that we fall in love or we feel like we gotta have guests. You know what I mean? And we have to find guests to have on, and you know, I mean, that works for your podcast. Is really designed to talk to interesting everyday people and stuff like that. It works for you, but with me with my podcast, there were times I had guests, and some of those episodes were very good. But when I brought my friend on, and we would have guests together, but there were sometimes we didn't have guests. And some of our my favorite episodes that we've done was when it was just he and I acting silly and talking, and making fun of just ridiculous people in the world. Like we had a whole episode dedicated to. We were just making fun of Scott Baio for about 45 minutes. And it was the funniest thing ever. We created a Hall of Fame of Scott Baio dedicated that we were just going to put like the worst people on earth in there. And I tweeted at him and asked him if he would, want to come to our induction ceremony, and he blocked me on Twitter. And it was funny. And it turned out, and it was really just like a phone conversation he and I would have had where we were just acting goofy, and it turned out to be it's probably my favorite episode. So, that I think is really just your content, and it doesn't have to be so reliant on guests and interviews.
Okay. So with that being said, what are you looking for in terms of podcasts to be featured in the magazine? Is there any one thing, or are those the three things that you focus on when you're listening to a podcast with the intent of possibly featuring them? We
are not looking for anything, and I made that a point with my partner Jay and myself to really try to state that we are not looking for anything. And the reason we want to be that way is because we want to have an open mind, and really, each issue we want to try to give like a varying array of like categories and topics and stuff like that. Another thing that we plan to do is we plan to give at least one issue a year. So I used to write for a sports website years ago, and I'm a big baseball fan. I wrote for a few years in a row a piece where it was the 30 best baseball players that most people don't know. And I picked a player out from each team, and I talked about them. And we're actually planning to do an entire issue of that about podcasts, where we want to dedicate at least one issue independent and eclectic, maybe off the beaten path podcasts and things like that. So we make it a point not to look for any specific thing. We will give everything a shot. We try to vary every issue and make it as eclectic as possible. It's that's what we're trying to do.
I love that. So with so many podcasts, with so many people starting podcasts, why do you think so many people fizzle out after a while?
Well, I mean, it's work. You know what I mean? It becomes, so it becomes like, it becomes a job. So it really does become a job. So you have to love it in order to keep doing it. So it's not as easy or as simple to do. And if you have multiple people working on it and they don't love it as much as you, it makes it difficult. I mean, the majority of podcasters are not getting paid for their content, so they are doing everything on their own. So there's, real world, real lives that get in the way, and you have to work around that, and that is work on top of work. And not many people are that dedicated to, when a hobby is fun, but when it stops feeling like fun and starts feeling like work, I think that's where that's where the divide is. That's where you get the podcasts that fall off, and the ones that are willing to really work, that's where it keeps going.
Absolutely. So at
Do you feel that way, like, too? Like, did you get to a point where you're like, man, this is more work than I thought?
It is a lot of work, but I love it. I really do. I edit my own stuff. I did too. Set up my own interviews. I do everything on my own. Everything. My website. I even started another website just dedicated to talking about little things about podcasts, like to help people that, maybe starting podcasts. And so whatever things that I've had happen to me, I'll just write a little blog about it and, give my ideas about it or whatever. So I really, really enjoy it. And that goes back to what you said, is once you enjoy something, you keep on doing it, even if there's nothing in it for you in terms of monetary,
Right.
So what are you the most excited about at this stage in your life?
Well, I mean, like, I'm really excited about this magazine. Like, I have a passion for art and a passion for writing. There are things that I've done throughout my life since a youngster, even on my own time, and it's really, with this, aside from like the podcasting stuff and helping other creators get known and showcasing things, the actual making of the magazine is like stuff that I want to do, and I'm doing it not for another website or for somebody else, but for myself. So even if this doesn't become like huge or anything else like that, it's still something that I created. It's a unique idea, it's my content and things that I've done and learned on my own and taught myself. Like even the design stuff, the Adobe programs and things like that. Those are things that I learned on my own. I taught myself. I never have been formally trained in any of that. And it's our first cover was we were just filmed yesterday in the documentary, and I showed those guys a preview of the cover and things like that, and they were, I guess, pleasantly surprised, because it is, we are a small upstart, but it's very, everything has been done very professionally, and that's what I'm most excited about, is that my idea is coming to fruition, and I'm creating something, and I am working on it, and it's for me. It's for my creation, something that I created. It's not something that's somebody else's idea, and they created it, and I'm helping them bring their idea to life.
Right. It's all you. That's awesome. I love it. All right. Well, now it's time for you to share an oh hell no moment with us. So you've listened to the show. You know about the oh hell no moment. So we need you to share yours.
Oh man, I forgot all about this, and I gotta think of something quick. Oh my goodness. Oh hell no moment. My goodness. Oh man. It could be like, does that pertain to the magazine?
Nope. It can be anything. It could be something that happened at work today. It could be something that happened in your kitchen last week. It could be anything that you were just like, oh hell no, this is not going down.
All right. Okay. All right. I'm gonna. All right. So I'm a dad. I told you before. I have. So my oldest daughter is 21, and oh man, let's see here.
She's gonna kill you.
And she probably will, because she knows, like, once it comes out and I show her I was on it, she'll probably listen to it. But whatever. So she's a great girl, good head on her shoulders. College basketball player. She played community college, but she's going for a nursing degree. She's a hard worker. She's an angel. She's also very naive. And there was she works at a chain restaurant, one of those like chain restaurants that also has a bar. She waitresses and bartends, and she was working with this. There was a guy there who was older, almost my age, maybe 5 years younger than me, and he was married, and he was like, they were friends, and he was kind of like getting a little too nice with her to the point where people were talking, and I was trying to. He would like go out to get his wife something to eat and then stop in and say hello to her, and while she was working. And I tried to kind of subtly tell her, like, hey, like, this guy maybe not being is being inappropriate, and and she was just like, oh no, Dad, it's not like that, totally naive to you and I both know what's on this guy's mind,
right?
So finally, I had to just be like, oh, hell no. I told this guy, I'm like, no, if I catch you around my fucking daughter one more time, your wife's going to be wondering where her husband went, because nobody's going to ever see you again.
That's right.
Yeah, he got the picture real quick, and I did, luckily I didn't have to do anything or anything like that, but I was kind of like,
right.
I'm a guy. Like, I know how guys think, and as you get older, you learn, and my daughter, at the time, she was like 19, and I wanted her to stay a little naive. So I had to be like, oh, hell no. But luckily, I didn't have to have that. I didn't have to sit her down and really tell her what this guy wanted. She just thinks that he stopped bothering with her, and he ended up working somewhere else after that, and everything turned out great. But that was a huge hell no moment, because that is really, like, I was happy that my daughter made it to adulthood, never given us a single problem, and everything. She was good grade, everything was perfect. And then she gets out in the real world, and I'm like, oh yeah, I don't have to worry about her. I have to worry about everybody else.
I love it. That's awesome, Lou. You don't play
Guys
games. No, that's good. That's what you're supposed to do. So it was such a pleasure having you on the show. I really enjoyed talking to you today and finding out about your passion.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yes, I love it. So tell us, what can you tell us about the magazine? When is it coming out? How will the issues run? Like, what sneak peeks can you give us?
Okay, so it's going to be a app-based only digital publication that comes out monthly. So every month, if you download the app, we're going to give everybody the first issue free. And then it's going to be subscription based after that, where you could buy issues, or you can save 50% and subscribe for a year. Right now this isn't set in stone, but right now we are looking at if you subscribe for a year, around $12, only $1 an issue for a yearly subscription. That's good. Yeah, so we're trying. We hope that we can keep that price point, and it looks like we're going to be able to. Right now we're looking at around between May 18th and 22nd for the first issue to drop. Probably the 22nd when we go live with the apps and release the first issue. So it's roughly a month away. It's going to be iOS. So it'll be in the Apple Store, iOS, and Google Play, Android. We won't be Amazon-based right away. We're hopefully 6 months down the line to be also Amazon-based as well. It's a little trickier, and like I said, on restricted budget, we have to, we had to cut some things out, and the two major ones are Apple and Android. Okay. So that's it. We are also going to be starting a Kickstarter where people who want to pledge to help us, we're trying to raise some money so we can completely fund the magazine for 6 months to a year without worrying about one single subscription, so we can really give people the chance to see what we're about and develop over time. And there are going to be some really, really cool rewards. Like one of the rewards we're going to have for people who pledge at a certain price point will be things like, lifetime subscription, free advertising. And one of the really, really cool ones is we're not sure if we're going to do printed issue. We're not ever going to do printed issues, but the first issue we may either print out about 10 copies or just 10 covers and have them signed and hand numbered by the guys who are going to be on our first cover.
That sounds amazing. I love that. That's a great idea.
And we are going to, thank you. We are also going to have a, an announcement on Instagram. If you don't mind me plugging it, people can follow me. Follow the magazine at Pod Magazine on Instagram. Probably about 2 weeks before we launch, where we reveal the actual cover of the first issue.
Cool. All right. Well, we will definitely be following along and watching this progress and grow, and I'm sure it will be a success. So
that's right. That's it.
It's amazing.